Hey, how's it going? Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, do that thing down below. This is the first look at the Heidenau K60 Ranger. So I wanted to basically, if you didn't know about this tire, make sure you knew about it and some of the details of this tire from what I am finding early on. Now, this is not meant to be a total review. There are some things that you may want to know about this tire if it's something you're interested in, like mounting it and just maybe how you expect it to perform. And I have about 400 miles on this tire now, and 80 to 100 of that is off-road, to include deep gravel and some mud, not a lot. So it's basically just a quick overview. Now, I learned about this tire from Kyle Bradshaw, so thanks, Kyle, if you do watch this. I wouldn't have known about this tire if it wasn't for Kyle. He's a great resource. I will leave a link to that particular video in the description below, because he gives details on the tread height, which I think the front tire is around 8mm, and then the durometer, or the rubber hardness on these tires, which these are a pretty hard tire. Now, to start with, I'll go with the front tire. The front tire is really, the carcass is super stiff. This is the hardest tire I've ever mounted on the front. Normally with front tires, I can lube up the bead, I can lube up the rim and push the first bead on. I don't have to spoon it on. I could not do that with this tire. I had to spoon on the first bead. And then when I got to the second bead, I had gotten my tube put in there all nice and neat. It was tough. It's the hardest front tire I've ever installed. Now, how does this front tire perform early on? Well, because it is a wide spaced knob and it's a tall knob, in gravel it works pretty well. It tracks like I would expect. In the deeper gravel, it gets through it. It doesn't wander. On gravel over the top of hard pack, it does wander a little, but most tires do. Mud wise, it's been fine. It's rolled through it. I haven't had any issues with the front trying to wash out, but the mud that I was going through, I went through pretty slow. There was quite a bit of gravel in it too to help pack it down, so it wasn't serious heavy duty mud. Now, the one thing I will say is cornering on this tire on the road has been fine. I don't ride hard. I still have all the little knobs, even in this part of the tire. It's the off-road cornering that has been surprising to me, because this carcass is so hard. When I lean the bike over to go around corners, it's not tracking like I would like it to. It's drifting. I'm not going really fast. I'm just trying to get through the corners, and I think it's because I'm running 32 psi up front. I don't typically lower my tire pressures to prevent getting a pinch flat, or also from damaging my rim. So with that tire pressure, it's probably too high. I need to lower it maybe down to even 26 or 28. But at 32, the carcass is so incredibly stiff. It is not flexing. It is staying hard, which means it's staying on the edge of the tire, not really allowing these treads to kind of dig in. So that's the first things I've noticed about this particular tire. Because the tread depth is so deep and the durometer, the tire hardness, is so hard, I expect to get 8,000 to 10,000 miles out of this knobby front tire, which would be fantastic. And I think the carcass will break in the more it's squished down. This is early on in the tire. I will do a complete review. When the rear tire looks like it's done, then I'll talk about my experiences on those. So let's move to the back and talk about the rear tire. Rear tire. It is super chunky. There's big gaps between the lugs. The way the lugs are broken up, it looks like it's going to give good off-camber traction. I've only been in those situations a little bit over the last couple of days. I am currently mid or towards the beginning, for me, the end of section 1 of the Mid-Atlantic BDR, and the last section of off-road, I believe. The tread depth, I think, is around 10 millimeters. Check out Kyle's video. He talks about the tread depth of both the front and rear, so you'll be able to get that if that's really important to you. The durometer, it is a hard tire. The sidewall is incredibly stiff. This is the hardest tire I've ever had to mount. Same with the front. Usually with the rear tires, I can lube the bead and lube the wheel and get that first bead to pop on. There was no way I was doing it with this. I had to spoon on the last bit on the first bead, and then getting the last bead on was a struggle. I was able to get it, but it took a lot. With this particular tire, I'm gonna run it until it is dead, because I'm not gonna be switching this tire on and off like I've done some other rear tires. Its performance, I'm running 36 PSI, and this is in a 130/80/17 size, so if you're curious about size, it's gonna behave differently on this bike, the way this is weighted, than it will on a bigger bike with a bigger tire size. So just keep that in mind. Everything I say here can apply, but may not apply. Your experience may be a little bit different. On road, the bike has traction control. I've noticed when I'm leaning it and I give it a little throttle, especially on new asphalt where they've put new sealant on, I can get the rear tire just to slip a little, and I don't lean hard. I still have all the little nipples on my tires, but I have noticed that because it's a new tire, I'm taking my time breaking it in. I'm not running hard, but even running it like that, I can still feel a little bit of a slip. Off-road, mud, it's been fine. It slipped around a little when I got on the throttle yesterday going through a section. Most of the mud puddles here have gravel underneath, so the mud's not real deep. You get into gravel pretty quickly, so it hasn't been bad. The deeper gravel, this has tracked the front tire just fine, kept me going. I've been going through there at a decent pace. I haven't been going slow, so I don't know if this tire would dig into the gravel. I'm guessing it would if you give it enough throttle. It'd probably do the same in sand. If you give it enough throttle, it's going to dig, but if you can keep it up on top, it should plane out okay. Now, the sidewalls, I've already said they're super stiff. I'm running 36 PSI. I think that's probably a bit high for this tire to get the best traction, but I'm trying to save my wheels. I don't want to bang those into things. But what I've noticed is when I'm leaning this tire over and I'm giving it a little throttle, it's wanting to slide a little bit more than I would expect. And I think that's because the carcass is so stiff and it really hasn't broken in from all that movement back and forth. And so it's not flattening out as much as it could when you lean it over to get on these side treads. So I think a lower tire pressure and leaning it a little bit more would probably get a better bite out of this and be able to take some corners a little bit faster. I'm not trying to go fast, it's just what I'm feeling. So that would be my guess with this tire, because it is so dang stiff. You can get away with a lower tire pressure. So anyway, this is just a quick look to let you know that mounting these is a bugger and somewhat what to expect if you're gonna go out, put these on your bike and be running them. Now, noise wise, I already have a lot of wind noise coming into my helmet. The front tire right now is not that noisy. I expect as it wears down, it will get much noisier. The rear tire, I'm not gonna hear that over my exhaust anyway, so I'm not so concerned about tire noise out of the rear. But out of the front, right now, compared to some other tires I've ran, it is not that noisy, but I expect it will get noisier as we go. So if this is a tire you're interested in, hopefully you found this to be valuable. Again, check out Kyle's video if you want more of the technical details. I just wanted to make sure that you knew what you were getting into, especially if you change these tires yourself. Hardest tire I've ever had to mount. So a couple more things I need to add about this particular tire is I have spent a lot of time riding in the rain, in the 500 plus miles I have on it now, and on wet roads. So far, I do have ABS, I do have traction control. I have not felt the tires slide around or move around. I know on the K60 Scout, there was a lot of comments that riders didn't like how that tire felt on wet roads. So far, I haven't had any issues. I've ridden through Virginia, Tennessee, and I'm now in North Carolina. The roads are very, very twisty up and over these passes. I haven't had any issues up to this point. Granted, the tire is new. I feel like it's mostly broke in at 500 plus miles. So wet roads seems fine. Of course, on wet gravel roads, it's great. The other thing that I forgot to mention earlier was that I've had a couple emergency stops because of deer jumping out in front of me on paved roads. The roads were dry, but getting on the brakes really hard, it did not engage the ABS. I was able to stop no problem. So just maybe something else to note. Thanks for watching. Get out, do some riding, ride safe, and I will see you out there.